All right, let's jump right into what is, no joke, one of the biggest constitutional showdowns in Indian history, the landmark case of Minerva Mills. And look, this isn't some dry story about a textile company. No, this is a battle for the very soul of the Constitution.
Just listen to this. This one line from the judgment says it all. The power to destroy is not a power to amend. I mean, that perfectly sums up the whole conflict, right? It all boils down to this. What are the limits on Parliament's power? Can they just rewrite the entire rulebook, or is there a line they absolutely cannot cross?
So, here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll get a handle on this key idea called the basic structure. Then, we'll see Parliament's big power play, how the Supreme Court pushed back, the incredible balance they found, and wrapping it all up, why this case still matters so much today.
Okay, so before we can even get to the main event, the Minerva Mills showdown, we have to go back in time a little. You see, you can't really understand the battle without understanding the weapon that was used. This whole thing kicks off with a kind of constitutional prequel.
And that prequel is the case of Ananda Bharati case from 1973. Now, this case asked a question that sounds simple but was, well, absolutely earth-shattering. Does Parliament have the power to just rewrite the whole Constitution? The answer the court gave? It drew a massive line in the sand.
And here it is, the court's big, groundbreaking answer, the Basic Structure Doctrine. The idea itself is actually pretty simple, but it's incredibly powerful. It says, sure, Parliament, you can change the Constitution, you can amend it to keep up with the times, but, and this is a huge but, you cannot destroy its core identity. You can't just knock down the fundamental pillars of our democracy.
So you can probably guess what happened next, right? This whole basic structure idea? Well, it didn't exactly go over well with a parliament that was looking for more power, not less. And that's what leads us right into the heart of our story. Parliament's attempt to basically erase the Supreme Court and this new doctrine from the equation.
And the timing here is absolutely critical. So you've got the Basic Structure Doctrine landing in 1973. Then boom, just 2 years later, a national emergency is declared. And right in the middle of all that, in 76, Parliament pushes through this massive 42nd Amendment. And let me tell you, this wasn't just some minor tweak. This was a direct shot at the Supreme Court.
And what they did was, well, it was incredibly bold. They added 2 new clauses to Article 368, the part of the Constitution that deals with amendments. Clause number 1 basically said, no court can ever question an amendment, ever. And the second one? It declared that Parliament's power to amend was absolute, with, and this is a direct quote, no limitation whatsoever. I mean, they were literally trying to write themselves a blank check.
Oh, but they weren't done. Nope, they also went after another part, Article 31C. They changed it to say that if the government passes a law to achieve one of its goals, these things called directive principles, that law would now be more important than some of your most fundamental rights. We're talking about the right to equality, the right to freedom. This completely threw the entire balance of the Constitution out of whack.
And this is where Minerva Mills finally comes into the picture. The company challenged these massive changes, and the case went all the way up to the Supreme Court. So now the stage is set. The question is simple, but the answer? Well, the answer was going to define the very future of democracy in India.
So let's just think about the core question here. Can an institution, in this case Parliament, which was created by the Constitution, can it just turn around and say, actually, we're the boss now? Can you be given a limited amount of power and then use that same power to grant yourself unlimited power? It's a huge question.
The Supreme Court's answer? A single, powerful word. No.
And the reasoning behind that no was just beautifully logical. First, they said, look, the power to amend the Constitution was always meant to be a limited power. That limit is a part of the basic structure. Second, Parliament is a creature of the Constitution. It can't become the master. And third, and this is crucial, the power of the courts to review laws, what we call judicial review, that itself is a basic feature. You can't just take that away. It would break the whole system.
Okay, so that's one part of the judgment down. But there was another piece to this, and it's just as important. It's about that other change they made, the one that put our fundamental rights up against the government's goals. And how the court handled this. Honestly, it was a masterclass.
So let's just quickly break this down. What are fundamental rights? Think of them as your personal shield. They are there to protect you, the individual, from the power of the state. These are your core freedoms, and you can actually go to court and say, hey, my rights are being violated.
And on the other side of the coin, you've got what are called directive principles. The easiest way to think about these, it's the government's to-do list.
They are the big goals the Constitution sets for the country. Things like social justice and economic welfare, they're a guide for the state, but you can't, sue the government for not finishing its to-do list tomorrow.
So what the court said was that the relationship between your rights and the state's goals, that's the very bedrock of the entire Constitution. It's not supposed to be a fight between them. They're like two wheels on the same chariot. They have to work together, in harmony.
So it makes perfect sense, right? If you give total power to one wheel, you're just going to break the chariot. You destroy that essential balance. And because that harmony is itself a part of the basic structure, the court said, nope, that amendment is unconstitutional too.
So you might be thinking, okay, this case is from over 40 years ago. Why are we still talking about it? Why does it matter so much today? Well, because its legacy is what defines the limits of power in India, even right now.
Basically, Minerva Mills hammered home 3 non-negotiable truths about our democracy. Number 1, Parliament's power is not absolute. It has limits. Number 2, the Constitution is supreme. It's above everyone and everything, including Parliament. And number 3, the courts have the job, the duty, to be the final protector of that Constitution.
Think about it. Back in 1980, a really turbulent time politically, the Supreme Court just drew this massive, uncrossable line in the sand.
And the big takeaway here is just so important. The Minerva Mills judgment cemented the idea that India is a constitutional democracy. What does that mean? It means we're a nation governed by lasting principles, not just by whatever a majority in Parliament wants at any given moment. It made one thing crystal clear. In India, the Constitution is king.
And all of this leaves us with this huge question that, honestly, is still at the center of debates today. In this constant dance between Parliament and the Constitution, who really gets the final word? Is it the will of the people's representatives, or is it the timeless soul of the Constitution itself? Thanks to Minerva Mills, we have a much clearer answer to that question.
Thank you everyone for joining the class and please like, share, subscribe my channel. आप लोग सब्सक्राइब नहीं करोगे तो फिर आप लोग को वीडियो नहीं मिलेगा और आप लाइक करोगे तो मुझे मोटिवेशन मिलेगा. थैंक यू फॉर ज्वाइनिंग वंस अगेन. टाटा, बाय बाय, टेक केयर.